Good morning, everyone. I hope I can live up to that introduction. My name is Pragna Tolman, and I work the supervisor of the visa unit. Margaret Royston will be co-presenting with me, and she does the day-to-day processing. Just to give you an idea of the visa unit, there are 6 of us, and out of the 6 of us, 4 of us were like you. We came as dependent spouse. So we've been through what you're going to go through, and so we do understand a lot of the concerns and questions you may have. So let me start first with letting you know what we're going to cover this morning. We'll go over the eligibility for applying for the work permit. Then we'll go over the first-time applications, including what documents you require, the timing, the whole overall turnaround times, and 2 options you have for applying for the work permit, whether you apply as a self-employed person or whether you have been offered a job through a company. Then we'll cover, once you have your work permit, and this is much further down the line, when you come to renew, what you need to do then. And finally, we'll cover what you need to do once you have the work permit and midstream you change employers or employment. And then finally, we'll take all your questions at the end. Again, if I can ask you please to leave that till the end. You may preempt some of the information coming. However, if you have a burning question, of course, I'll stop and answer. So let's start with why you need a work permit in the US. If you're on a G-4 dependent visa, the US Immigration Service requires you to have a work permit, a valid work permit. And this is whether you work for another international organization, for your embassy, or any public or private institution, or if you want to be self-employed, you need a valid work permit. You don't need a work permit if you're going to do voluntary work and not be paid for it. So for paid employment, that's what one looks like. Wonderful moustache from that gentleman. So who is eligible for a work permit? Well, children, dependent children on G4s are up to the age of 23, and there are no exceptions after that. That's a hard stop at 23. Children under 21 must be unmarried, and they don't have to be in full-time education. However, those children between the ages of 21 and 23, if they're applying for a work permit, must be in post-secondary education. Finally, if you have a dependent child who is physically or mentally disabled, you can apply for a work permit for them beyond the age of 23. And with that application, you're required to submit proof of the disability, doctor's reports, etc. Then, eligible dependent spouses are the main category, 1 spouse at a time. We have, ex-spouses aren't allowed, nor if, so we've had this in the past, somebody had 2 spouses, but only 1 spouse is recognized. Those dependents who are not eligible to apply for work permits are opposite sex domestic partners, and they in fact do not get G4 visas. Parents who are on G4, dependent G4s, are not eligible to apply for work permits. And finally, if the staff member is a green card holder and they have a dependent G4 spouse, that spouse is not eligible to apply for a work permit. In any case, any application we receive for a work permit, the principal G4 visa holder, i.e. the staff member, must have at least 6 months left on their contract at the time of application. So everybody, before applying for a work permit, you need what's called a PID number, personal identification number. And what that is when a staff member joins the World Bank, we are required by the State Department to report the arrival of that staff member and any other G4 dependents who have entered the US with the staff member. What we do is the staff member fills out a form and submits supporting documents. Passport page of the staff member and all the dependents, the G4 visas, and a copy of the I-94 card. That's been automated. When you enter the US, the immigration officer in the old days would give you a copy of the entry document. Now it's online, so each of you has that online. The staff member is required to submit that one during PID registration. That's proof that you're in the US. No application can be submitted without proof of you having entered the US. We often get questions of incoming staff, can they start the application process before arriving in the US? You can't, because they need proof of arrival. So we send those documents to the State Department. They put all this information in the database for the staff member and the dependents, and they assign each person what's called a PID number. It's an 8-digit number. It's a one-off process, so we encourage a staff member as soon as they arrive and that all the family members are here to apply for the PID number. That number is crucial for any other requests we make in the US. For example, for a work permit, for a driver's license letter, etc. You have to have that number. So if you've arrived, who arrived recently? 2 weeks ago? Right. So I'd urge you, if you haven't, to submit the PID, staff member. The rest of you may already have that in process. It takes about 4 to 6 weeks to get that number. And you need that number at the time when you apply for the work permit. They ask for that number on the form. So that's the first thing to obtain, the PID number. Once you have the PID number, you send us the application, and we'll go through in detail soon on what you need to do, what you need to submit. The whole process for the work permit, once we submit the work permit to State Department, on average takes 8 to 12 weeks. We're giving you an average time. It could come sooner, it all depends on the volumes at the State Department, and we have peak seasons, low seasons. So what happens is HRDSO, that's our department, we send the package to the Office of Protocol, which is one part of the State Department. They will make sure the PID number's on there. They'll pull up your records from the PID registration to make sure that you're eligible, etc. Once they've cleared that, they forward it to the USCIS, which is the Immigration Service. They forward that to the USCIS, who are based in Lincoln, Nebraska. So your application goes there. They then actually issue the card and do the final processing. So unfortunately, the moment it goes from us to the State Department, we don't have a tracking device. However, when it gets to the Immigration Service at the end, they send us a tracking number. And more often than not, it's a week or two before actually your card arrives. It's really not very useful, but at least we have something towards the end of the process. So that's, once it leaves our hands, we can't really track it till it gets to USCIS. So it's quite a long process. As soon as we receive it, we try to get them out in 2 or 3 days. We have couriers that go twice a week to the State Department. So I'm going to hand over now to Margaret, who will go through the documents that are required.
Yes, hello. The first form that you would look at is it's a World Bank form, the one on top, the form 168, and it's a transmittal form, but it also has some other purposes because it also has a summary of all the documents that you may need, and it helps you to decide whether or not, for example, the first time you're applying, you would only need the first 5, and then for renewals you need a few more, and if you're 20 to 22, you'd need a few more. So it's broken down for you on the Form 168. I would also recommend that you go, each time you're going to apply, you go into the website. We'll show you the path later on, because as the State Department changed their policies, we update our information and the form might change. So, some people tend to print it and leave it for later, but then they submit an outdated form. Also bear in mind that the government forms change too. So if you print it and leave it for 3 years' time, when you reapply, it might be outdated. So it's good to go in and check. Or it has our visa administrator name on it, so make sure, that might change. So the first document we ask for is a letter of employment. So they can see what you're going to be doing and what your qualifications are and all that. So if we have a sample that most people use, especially for the self-employment letter, you put your qualifications, what you plan to do if you're going to be self-employed, and I guess you could find out from other people and put an idea of what you expect to earn, because they will send us back the application if that information is missing. And then also on the form itself, when you look at the form online, you'll be able to access these other forms directly from the Form 168. So you don't have to go to different places to get all the documents. And we would have the latest version with the name of our current visa administrator, because everything is through the bank. So you can find these forms on the government website, but it won't have the information you need. It needs to have the World Bank information. So the Form I-566, it's the USCIS form, and it's pretty straightforward. It just asks your name and your relationship to the principal and, straightforward information like that. If the principal, one important thing they look at is the end date, the tour of duty, because normally that would be the expiration date of the work permit. And if it's an open-ended staff, you just put indefinite, they would give 3 years. It's never more than 3 years. And your PID and other things like that. And they've asked for original signatures, not just copies. So basically they need 2, but we've been asking for 4 because in the past, I don't know, they've gone missing. So we asked for 4 originals and a photocopy. And the Form I-765, we asked for 1 original and a photocopy. And then the staff member just as added proof. This will probably make your process go smoother when it's there, because just send whatever they ask for, just send it as much as you can. The passport biography page, your current G-4 visa, and the I-94 form. And that's the website where you would go and just, it's very easy to access it, print it out, and send it with the application. And this is an important change. This is an example of something we've had to change recently on our website. The passport pictures must be taken within the last 30 days and not previously used. Because if they notice that it's the same photo that was used on your G-4 visa, for example, they reject it. So they want brand new photos. So they've been rejecting quite a few for that reason. but the standard passport picture. And you can get them taken here at the bank, free of cost. All right, so they're also very demanding when it comes to dependent children. From 20, it's officially from 21 to 20 to their 23rd birthday. But from age 22, from age 20, they start asking for this proof. There's an additional form, which is on the form 168, and they start asking for more proof that the child, they need a letter from the school registrar to say this person is in full-time status, and just showing them the transcript with the amount of classes and credits, that's not enough. They want it stated explicitly, and they want the expected graduation date, because the work permit will not go beyond the graduation date. It won't go beyond the parents' term, and it won't go beyond the 23rd birthday, whichever is earliest. And if the child is under 20, though, you don't need this proof of being a full-time student. But if they're very young, like under 17 or under 16, you need a certificate of labor. But I haven't seen any of those. Most of the teenagers that are applying just say they're going to be self-employed. They're going to do babysitting or whatever. And so, or they're already 16 or 17. And, you know, please pay attention to the number of copies of each document that's listed on the form. And then at the bottom, that's the path. That's an external path that spouses can go to get the everything. You can get the form and all the information and the sample of the appointment letter or self-employment letter. Yeah, and this is setting out what they want to see in the self-employment letter. But, you know, you can just use, we have that letter there online, and you can just use it and put in your own information, and they're normally happy with that. They just need to know. But they do return it if you don't put any kind of salary or fee. Okay, and before I was talking about first-time applications. It gets a little more complicated when you're about to renew. And the main problem here is that they want to be sure that you paid taxes and that you paid you filed properly. Regardless of how long you've been living in the U.S., if you are a G-4 dependent with a work permit, you are categorized as a non-resident for tax purposes. That means that you don't get most of the benefits that are accorded to permanent residents or U.S. citizens. You pay taxes at a higher rate. And this has been a stumbling block for a lot of applicants because they don't pay attention. It's on our website, but they don't pay attention to this. So, you know, you can just go online and fill in your taxes and file them and pay them, whatever. But it's for most people, it's a 1040. That's the name of the form. But for us, it's 1040 NR or 1040 NREZ. The NR standing for non-resident. And so it's not only the World Bank, it's all the international organizations, embassies, whatever. And because you're paying taxes at I should warn you, like if you want to, you can refile later, but for some people it has cost them tens of thousands of dollars if you go back to file 3 years. Well, so it's better to do it right the first time. And if for some reason you've already filed 1040, and they look at the previous 3 calendar years. So if you're applying now, they would want 1040 NR for 2011, 12, and 13. If for any reason you had to go back and refile at this time, then they need 2 forms, the 1040X, which indicates that something has changed, in addition to the 1040 NR. You need those 2 forms for each year. So also when you're renewing, they want a copy of the current card. And there's of course there should not be any gap. As if you're not working at the time, I guess it's not, but you know, they accept them 90 days before expiration, and that's what the recommendation is. So if we're just getting it 2 weeks before or something like that, just send that letter to explain why there's a gap. Typically, a common reason is that the manager waits until the last minute to extend the appointment. So you know you need that 6 months. So you don't know when your new end date is. So you know you're waiting for your spouse's appointment to be extended, or whatever, you are traveling, whatever, you haven't been working, whatever. But they do want a letter. It needs to be part of the application to understand, to explain why it's so late. But typically, if you're working, there should be no gap.
What are current, if your staff member is going to submit the work permit, really this is for them to know. We've added another step. They go into our self-service portal in the bank. They will initiate the request in there for you or a child, dependent child, and then the documents all have to be brought into us within 10 days to process. And from this, initiating this request online, we'll get a tracking number, so any follow-up on the case, asking for status or any other things you want to know, you'll have a tracking number for the case. Now, once you have your work permit, and say you're issued one for 3 years, and you applied, so let me go back quickly to the self-employment versus employment. So it's a catch-22 with nearly all staff. You arrive here as a spouse and you need a work permit to work. You can't get the work permit unless you've got the job. So there are 2 options. Those who've been offered a job, that's straightforward. You have an offer letter from the company to say that they're offering you this job, and that we put in the application. The other route, and 97% of the dependents use this, and I did when I first joined, is the self-employment route. And Margaret showed you a template where you say the 3 things that must be in this self-employment letter, as well as whatever the company's offering you. The letter must say what your experience is and what you propose to do in the job. Second is how much you propose to charge. You can, just give an estimate. When they process the work permits or after, they're not going to check that that's exactly how much you charge. They want a rough idea in the letter what you propose to charge for your services. And the third thing that all letters must have is how many hours you propose to work, or whether you propose to work full-time or part-time. When the State Department checks these applications, those 3 things must be in this letter. So, say for example you got your work permit through this self-employment letter. I'm a teacher with 20 years qualification, I propose to teach, blah, blah, blah. You get the 3-year work permit. But say a year on through that work permit, you're offered a job with an IT company or something. So you have the valid work permit. You can go ahead and accept that job with the company. However, you must report the change of employment to us in HR operations. It could work the other way. You're working for a company now, after a year you decide to be self-employed again. So you must, either way you switch, you must let us know. And the way you do that, you send us the following: an offer letter from the company or the self-employment letter, whatever is applicable at the time, a copy of your valid current work permit, and a brief note to say, I'm changing employment. I was self-employed, I've been offered a job with this company, or vice versa. When you submit that to us, you can carry on and make the change. You don't have to wait for permission to go ahead. We send those documents to the State Department, and they just update their records and they let us know that that's fine. I mean, they've never rejected the request, but you can carry on and do that. So it's important, while you have a valid work permit, to report any change. Finally, here's our contact information. You can contact us by email at hroperations@worldbankgroup.org, or you can call us at 202-473-2222, and you're given several options. Option 2 will take you to a visa expert, visa processor. So that's what you should dial. Now the third form, I really recommend this, and we love to see staff and dependents. We have what's called a visa corner, which is Monday to Friday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. So somebody from the visa unit will be available without an appointment to see you. You don't have to come with a staff member, you can come any time. You can come and talk to us about your work permit, your visa, anything related to visa matters. Or if you want us to go through the forms with you to make sure you've completed them and they're okay. So we're there for you. So please, I encourage you to come and see us in person if you can do that. We have an intranet, but for you, we've highlighted the external site because you can access this from home. That's the path, and in fact, the employment authorization checklist we have is the best, I think, of all our checklists. It's very it's comprehensive and detailed. So that's our contact information.